Hi tech fans, it's me Mackenzie with Techrepublic. For today's video, we're going to take a deep dive into the dark web, specifically credit card fraud. Now this threat has steadily been contained in the last couple of years thanks to security measures like adding chips to cards, but it's still an ongoing problem for many people, and especially with businesses, and that's pretty scary. Joining me today to talk more about this further is Lance Whitney, a technology writer and reporter. He recently wrote an article on Techrepublic covering the latest on this topic, which you can go find a link to in the description below. So Lance, in your article you reported the findings from Cybersixgill regarding the dark web and credit card fraud. Can you tell us more about Cybersixgill and what did they find?
Sure, Mackenzie. So this was an article I wrote about a report from this company called Cybersixgill, which provides threat intelligence information to different organizations. And the whole thing was about credit card theft and credit card fraud. And they wanted to look at how this type of fraud has evolved or changed over the past year. So they looked at credit card fraud over the first half of 2022 compared with the last half of 2021. So a couple of things in the world of credit card theft. This type of activity has actually decreased over time, which is the good news. And a major reason for that is that the industry, in reaction to credit card fraud, started shifting to chip-enabled credit cards. So if you've shopped at stores, over time, you know that in the past, you typically had Stripe cards, Stripe only cards, where you'd have to swipe it through the card reader. And then in more recent years, a lot of vendors and retailers have moved on to chip cards where you insert your card in the card reader. And the advantage is that the chip enabled cards are much more secure and much less vulnerable to theft and fraud. So that's been really a positive trend overall in terms of this type of crime. However, the criminals still find ways to sneak past defenses and do what they need to do. And in terms of the report, Cybersixgill found that there were more than 4.5 million stolen credit and debit cards sold on the dark web during the first half of this year. Now, that sounds like a lot, but it's actually a huge drop from the last half of 2021, when there were 14 million cards that were up for sale on the dark web. So we are making some progress there. As far as where a lot of this theft occurs, the company found that almost half, meaning 45% of the cards that they found on the dark web came from the US. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Number one, in the US, we own a lot more credit cards than they do in other countries. So on average, American consumers have maybe 3 or 4 different credit cards. Contrast that with people in Europe, where they may have only 1 or 2 credit cards. Another reason is that the US was kind of late to the game as far as shifting to chip-enabled cards. In Europe, they adopted this more secure type of credit card much sooner and much earlier than in the US. So that's why the US is still a little bit behind as far as this more secure type of credit card information.
Yeah, really scary facts here. Though we're taking measures to prevent these criminals from getting our information, they're still finding ways to get it. Also, you mentioned that Americans are most targeted in these scenarios. So which cards in particular are being stolen?
As far as looking at the 4 major credit card providers, Visa was the top contender here. So Cybersecurity found that almost half, 49% of the stolen credit cards were from Visa, 36% were from MasterCard, 13% were from American Express, and only 2.5% were from Discover. The other thing they found here that's interesting too is that credit card information that is stolen and sold on the dark web is much more valuable and much more lucrative if it comes with the security code or the CVV code, which is that 3-digit code that you have on the back of the card. Credit card information that just has the credit card number, not as lucrative, not as sought after. And you know this, just people know this just from shopping. If you're shopping with a retailer, whether it's over the phone or online, uh, most of the time they will ask you for that 3-digit security code. And if you don't have it, that creates a little bit of a barrier. So cyber criminals are much more desiring of the total package, where they get the credit card number and they get the security code, so because they can use that to perform major credit card fraud.
Right, all great information you found there, Lance. So, with that said, what can one do to keep their credit card safe from the dark web?
Cybersixgill had a few tips and tricks for mostly for consumers, but also one for retailers on how to kind of cut down on credit card fraud. One thing that is good for consumers to do is to monitor your bank accounts and monitor your credit card statements. I think a lot of the time we're so accustomed to paying bills, credit card bills, and we don't necessarily look at or scrutinize the statement, whether you get a print statement in the mail or you can access an electronic statement online. We probably just pay the bill without looking at the different transactions, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So you want to try to monitor your bank account transactions and look at your credit card transactions on the statement and make sure that each transaction is legitimate and you know who the retailer is that you're paying this amount to. Um, Another piece of advice that they had was to look out for emails and text messages that seem to provide shipping information or purchase order information. This is a common scam from cyber criminals, in that they will send out emails and text messages claiming uh, that they have some type of information on a shipping order or a purchase order. Instead of engaging with or responding to that message, you want to go to the vendor's website independently or call them by phone and confirm whether or not this is a valid transaction before you take any action on it. Another piece of advice that's always good to keep in mind is to not reuse passwords across multiple accounts. And the reason is simple. If your password gets compromised for one account, the cyber criminals will love to take that stolen information and try to find other sites and other accounts that you use and see if they can compromise those accounts. So you definitely do want to have a unique password for each account. That certainly isn't easy, and that's why another tip is to use a password manager. While we're still stuck using passwords, really your best bet is to use a password manager to keep track of them all. Another piece of advice is to look out for emails or text messages that talk about coupons or promotions or special sales. That's another tactic that the bad guys will use to try to get your attention. If you get a message like this, same type of advice, look up the vendor independently online or call them and try to verify whether or not this is a legitimate offer. And then the final piece of advice, and this one is for retailers, and it goes back to what we were talking about before, is make sure that you've upgraded your card readers to chip-enabled cards. If you're still using the older style swiping terminal, you're really just asking for trouble, because those are much less secure than the newer style. And I've certainly seen this over time. I mean, years past, there were more stores that were stuck with the older style readers. And certainly over the past couple of years, I've seen more and more stores upgrade to the new chip readers. So if you're a retailer, if you have a store and you haven't upgraded yet, then do yourself and do your customers a favor and upgrade to the chip readers, because they're much more secure.
Well, Lance, thank you for all this great information. The more we know about this, the safer all of us will be. And if you want to learn more about all things tech, then go check out Techrepublic for the latest news in tech. Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Thanks for watching. Bye.